Yeah. In the Russian Federation, there are regions historically considered the territories of indigenous people. However, the lands legally belongs to the Russian Federation as a state. The concept is national republics and autonomies based on the Russian Constitution, which declares the equality of federal subjects. Nevertheless, indigenous people of some republics consider lands to have historical significance of their ethnic group. These regions, including Tatarstan, Republic of Tatars, North Caucasian republics, which is Chechen Republic, Ingush Republic, Dagestan, Kabardino-Balkaria, and so on. The Republic of Sakha-Yakutia, which is the biggest one. Tuva, Khakassia, Altai, Buryatia, Volga regions. Why these lands not formally owned by the indigenous people alone? The Russian Constitution established the unity of the state's territory and land, considered of national property. This is also the map of the North Caucasian region. Disputes over lands rights are linked to historical events, including conquests, resettlements, and colonization. Many indigenous people preserve their language and cultures thanks to the creation of the national republics. However, issues of the self-identifications and autonomy remains sensitive topics. The issue of political prisoners among indigenous people is a part of the broader problem of oppression and discrimination against indigenous people, which has existed for a long time and has only increased in the condition of the war with Ukraine. There are cases often linked to the struggle of the land rights, resources, cultural autonomy, and self-governance. In Russia, representatives of indigenous people may face political persecution due to their active civic stance. This is basically national costumes that heritage belongs to indigenous people. There is people of the North Caucasian republics, Sakha, Bashkirs, and also Karelian people. The main causes of political imprisonment of indigenous people is the fighting for the cultural rights, criminalization of the civic activism, repressions for cooperation with international organizations, as for example, as United Nations. Our struggle is suppression of native languages, undermining cultural institution, economical and social marginalization. Suppression of the native languages is assimilation policies included bans of the use of the native languages in school and government institution. This led to these laws of the languages, which is fundamental and cultural in the which is fundamental to cultural identity and heritage. Undermining cultural institution is there is no support for cultural preservation initiative, festivals, literature, and traditional practices after a lack of funding, and national museums and archives struggle to survive. Attempts to revive or maintain the cultural heritage are met with the bureaucratic resistance or indifference. Undermining economic and social marginalization, regions with the significant minority population are often undeveloped and lack access of the quality of education and healthcare. Economic struggles may push many migrate to urban city centers where assimilation is more rapid due to the dominance of Russian language and culture. Because basically we don't have a lot of working places and how can I say, development in the regions that people are forced to go to these cities like Moscow, St. Petersburg, and seek for the better life and job and so on. Also, we have a problem with resistance and repression, discrimination in employment and everyday life, restriction of the freedom of the religion. Resistance and repression efforts by minorities to preserve their culture and resist assimilation are met with accusation of separatism and extremism. Activists promoting national identity or language are subjected to surveillance, arrests, and forms of repression. This struggle underscores the border issue, how centralization and state control in Russia erode the rich diversity of its people, threatening their rights to cultural self-determination. Discrimination in employment in everyday life, particularly the national regions and migrant workers from the Central Asia like Uzbekistan, Tajikistan, Kazakhstan, and so on, face discrimination in the job market, harassment, and police abuse. They often subjected to unjustified suspicion, document checks, and arbitrary arrests. So basically, from my own experience, it was so hard, even though I was born in St. Petersburg, to find a job because my surname and name is not Slavic. And basically, I was facing the same discrimination. Like, for example, I was calling to find a job and speaking with the HR, and she's saying, like, do you have a registration? So basically, do you have a right to be in this city? Yeah. And restrictions on freedom of religion. Muslims encountered obstacles in building mosques. For example, in the St. Petersburg, we have only 2 mosques. Besides, the city is so big, like around 5 or 6 million people. And particularly in large cities like Moscow, also the same, like there is maybe few mosques. Many are forced to play outdoors due to the lack of the prayer spaces, which is further invites criticism and pressure. Like they say, like we are gathering a lot and there is like a lot of Muslims occupied this mosque, and it's like looks like scary because they people praying outside because they don't have a space. Indigenous spiritual practices and rituals as a shamanism were often banned on stigmatized like a backward for the people from the North republics. Also, Muslim communities, particularly among indigenous people groups like Tatars, Bashkirs, Chechens, Dagestanis, and so on, faced restriction on religion expression also, including bans on religious attire, limited Moscow construction, and state interfere in religious leadership. For example, in our mosques, usually working federal security, federal security agents, they're kind of watching us to consider like if someone is extremist or not. Even like, for example, if you're making paycheck for your relatives, you will be questioned like where this money is went. And efforts to control Islamic practices were often framed as the preventing an extremism, further alienating these communities. And how we can help in this situation. Activists may play the critical role in supporting indigenous people of the Russia by raising awareness of the problems, providing the resources, and advocating for their rights at the local, national, and international levels. Here are some practical ways activists can help or support. International solidarity, leverage international organization, work with the bodies like United Nations. Like, for example, our decolonial activists have a lot of reports in the United Nations, and they are also considered like an extremists now. Amnesty International and Human Rights Watch to draw the global attention to violating against indigenous people in Russia. Build cross-border alliances, partner with indigenous movement in other countries to share strategies, resources, and solidarity to share our experience also. And the smallest thing, but the very important thing, that write letters for supporting indigenous prisoners, because it's very important to feel to people that they are supported and they are not forgotten. And also how we can help to influence Russian opposition and Democrats to pay attention to indigenous people, because there is no attention and there is no solidarity between Democrats which is like now in opposition. There is no one mentioning the problem is not only the Putin war and everything, because there is like a lot of stuff like xenophobia and racism also in country. So the first one is highlighting shared values link indigenous rights to democracy, human rights and environmental justice. Demand representation, advocate for indigenous voices in opposition platforms and decision making. Raise awareness, use media campaigns and cultural events to showcase, discuss indigenous struggles. Apply pressure policy, challenge opposition, silence, and propose some concrete policy solution. Thank you for the watching and thank you for coming here for the event. So today we are writing for indigenous people, which is who are imprisoned basically for the kind of extremism, but basically people were fighting for the land rights, for the cultural rights. And the most important thing, it's because the Russian censorship is so hard. Do not mention that Putin war LGBTQ, and also do not support them like we will win and stuff like that, because it also will be censored. Thank you.
So I will have also a few minutes presentation with a bit more instructions for writing letters. Now, thank you to everyone who came. Some people came later, so maybe we can take a few minutes break before we put the presentation. And there are some snacks you can take. There are free things to take. Then homemade pastry for donation, which is very important for us because we need to pay money to send the letters to Russia. So yes, I will bring more tea, or someone can bring, and I will do the presentation.
Yeah.